Aloha, everybody. I'm Eva Andrade, and on this episode of the Triple F podcast, Faith and Family First, we are going to talk about Title IX, and this is the 50th year that Title IX was in existence. And we're going to talk about whether it's a good thing or a bad thing with all the changes that are coming down. So stay tuned. Let's chat about that. Well, hello, Jim Hochberg.
Hi, Eva.
How are you doing?
Fabulous.
You know what I like about this show?
Yeah, you get to be on it.
Well, okay, it's fun doing the show with you, and we talk about this all the time that you and I are not some big wig. You know, we don't get paid the money of Hannity or Joe Pags.
You don't?
No, I don't. I don't know about you, but every month
Wow,
I'm
should
praying.
complain.
I'm praying every month, Lord Jesus, send down some money, Lord. Take care of your poor child. Okay,
That's right.
I know.
I ain't no ways tired. Oh, I hated that.
Okay.
Anyway, go
I'm
ahead.
offended. I'm offended now.
That was
I don't
Hillary
even know
at
if
a
I can do
black
this
church.
show.
Do you
I don't
remember
know.
that?
Anyway, you and I, we do what we do, and we share about this all the time. We do what we do because we care about you. We care about Hawaii. We care about this state. We care about Jesus. He's a big part of who we are.
And I care a lot that, unfortunately, in the United States now, where you get your news is different than where other people get their news, and it's not the same news. That's not news.
Well,
that's like propaganda. That's not good.
When you and I started to do these podcasts, it was when they first locked down COVID, right?
We were on Zooms.
We were doing Zoom, and you look like Grizzly Adams. And for the older people know,
My phone threw me a photograph.
Okay, no, and here's the thing. Okay, so all you people who know who Grizzly Adams is, great, good job. All you who don't know Grizzly Adams, look it up. Look it up. That was Jim
But I
Hochberg.
wasn't as big as him because I never had.
Well,
been.
I'm not talking body shape, but you had the big beard and
I
all
did.
of that.
Well, we couldn't get haircuts, so I decided I wasn't going to shave
But
either.
you just doesn't even look like you. But when we were doing the shows, the reason we did it, right, was because of the misinformation that was going on. We could not believe what was happening.
That's true.
And even people on our side are guilty of forwarding stuff they have not double checked.
Correct.
You and I, when we were doing the show back then, on Zoom, and if you want to see these older shows of ours, send me an email and I'll tell you how to find them. You can laugh, and especially send a nice message to Jim Hochberg and his big hair, which was hilarious. But one of the things that we were talking about at the time, remember, was all the emails we were getting from people in the community going, did you hear about this? And we're going,
we're looking at it and we're looking behind it, and it turns out not to be true.
But what had happened is they had forwarded it to enough people that there was a lot of things going on. And in fact, when we talk about good things and bad things that came out of the COVID lockdown, one of the bad things was this rise of misinformation. And I think both sides have a big problem with misinformation.
I do too. And that's why we're doing this show, because we look at the background information that the story's about. We don't like to just take the word of whoever wrote the article, because everybody's spinning, and the truth is actually in the actual CDC document for COVID stuff, or Title IX regulations for Title IX regulations. And that's what we wanted to talk about.
We did. So for people that don't know, Title IX of the Education Amendment of 1972, it prohibits sex, including pregnancy, sexual orientation, gender identity.
It does not prohibit sex.
Just will you let...
It prohibits discrimination.
You always do
That's
this
what
to
you
me.
said.
I'm reading from a paper, okay? So I make a typo.
Oh, okay.
All right. You know what I meant. The real listeners know what I meant. I know there's some fake listeners out there, but the real listeners knew what I meant. So shout out to you real listeners out there. But anyway, so
it prohibits discrimination on the basis of...
prohibits the discrimination on sex, which means gender sex. Okay, so I'm talking about...
Well, it didn't in 1972.
The reason
that
they
came... Do you know
up,
who the congressperson was?
I'm never going to get this out, peeps.
Do you know who the congressperson was that name is on this?
See, you're interrupting me. I'm trying to get... Will you let me get there?
Yep.
Please let me get there. Okay. Anyway, it's...
You should talk to me in advance about what you're going to do so I don't guess ahead.
No, I think people like this. People like it when you harass me. But I don't know if people like it when I harass you. Can you guys comment right now, those watching on YouTube, if you like it when I harass Jim or when Jim harasses me? Maybe they're like, look, we're listening to the show. Get to the point. I have friends out there that are going to harass me.
That's true.
But anyway, so Representative Patsy Mink. So this is how Title IX ties into what we talk about, because one of our positive feedbacks was great that you guys are talking about all this national stuff, but tie it into Hawaii. So Title IX actually has a nice tie-in with Hawaii because Representative Patsy Mink, she was the first woman of color elected, first Asian American to the House of Representatives. She was the first woman elected to represent Hawaii. So she had this, she had a great way of building our reputation in Hawaii for doing something that wasn't,
bad.
It wasn't done. Well, anyway, she talks about, for those that remember Patsy, she talked a lot about when she was going through school, that the discrimination that she felt. And so she was one of the co-sponsors of this Title IX because she wanted to make sure that women were taken care of. And that was really the big issue and the big push behind her. So all of this stuff that happens with Title IX, and the reason we're talking about it today is because everybody and their grandmother is seeing all over the radios. Seeing all over the radio.
I didn't say
you know
anything.
You could see on the. You had that Jim look.
I said nothing.
And our producers and directors are laughing behind the camera too. Yes, when you see things on the radio, you already have a problem, right?
You do.
I mean, that's the real issue.
You could possibly be transgendered.
This is wow. I'm in a good mood. So are you. Okay, so anyway. People that are paying attention to any of the news sources, whether they're listening on the radio, watching TV, checking out YouTube, they're seeing that it looks like what's happening is biological males are starting to take over some of the women's sports issues. And the big thing
that's a small part.
It's a small part.
And for people that are younger that don't know who Patsy Mink was, you probably do know who Ruth Bader Ginsburg was. And she had a big part of her legal career had the same kind of problems that Patsy Mink had experienced, being a woman, trying to go to law school, trying to become a law professor, become a judge, all that kind of stuff. And so originally, Title IX required that women in academia be given the same opportunities as men in academia, which meant they couldn't be turned down for appointments or they couldn't not be accepted into school solely because they were women. And how that actually played out in society in a way that people noticed was in athletics, because it applied to if a college or university was going to spend X dollars on athletics, 50% had to go to girls' athletics and 50% to boys' athletics. Whereas before Title IX, they spent money on athletics in the sports that generated money to pay for itself. And Congress said, nope, you got to be 50-50. And so some men's sports had to go away so that girls' sports could get the funding, and that's perfectly fine. But to bring it up to speed now, it really bugs me, and I'm going to try to be neutral about it, but for a person that was born a male who went through puberty, has certain biological things that happen in their body with their bone density and their muscle strength and their ability to breathe in bigger gasps of air because they have bigger lungs and their heart's bigger and all that kind of stuff. For them to want to compete against girls, either because they believe that they're actually in the wrong body or not, is unfair. And the thing that strikes me, because I played sports and I wasn't all that great, but I had a lot of fun. Like I was never on an all-star team, but I always enjoyed being on a baseball team or a football team or whatever, because it's fun. The girls have been practicing their lives to be at college level or even high school level athletics. And it took a tremendous amount of dedication, but they can't really physically compete with the boys. And obviously some girls are bigger than some boys. So you can always have a straw man to prove me wrong.
Right.
I'm talking about, generally speaking, if you have an athlete that's got the same amount of training and experience in a sport that's a girl, and you have a athlete that's got the same amount of training or equally trained or close to equally trained, generally speaking, the boy's going to be stronger, faster, and all that kind of stuff. And so I feel really bad for the girls. And we had it here on Maui in the volleyball, interscholastic volleyball thing
was this Baldwin High?
Well, it was all over Maui, and I'm not sure which high school it was, because I was prepared to file the lawsuit with ADF, and then COVID hit, and they didn't have any more athletics because they didn't have any more school.
Well,
and now the guy graduated, so the issue's gone.
Well,
but what I was trying to get to is, I feel really bad for the girls who are losing out to biological males who compete in girl sports because they want to, for whatever their reason is, and maybe it's always because they believe they're girls. Sports has this huge component requiring fairness, which is why there's umpires and all that kind of stuff.
And I think that's what Patsy Mink was trying to deal with.
Yeah, and this is totally destroying
a level playing field is what they're asking
the fairness.
For. Right, and there needs to be. Now, I have 3 brothers and no sisters, and so
I have 4 sisters and no brothers. No wonder we can do this.
So I had 3 brothers, and one of my brothers was not even a year younger than me. So basically, my mom got
Don't get personal. We don't want to hear about
very quickly after she had me. And so I grew up with a brother we used to call each other the year twins, because when I would have my birthday, or when he would have his birthday, I should say, we were the same age for a little while. And so we used to call each other the year twins. So we did a lot together. And there was, for a lot of our early life, we were about the same size. But he beat me every time we tried to. And I had only brothers, so there'd be wrestling and, if I tried to play outside with them. And you know what? I'm not the greatest sports person in the world, but I used to be a mean racquetball player, so I am able to do sports. And because I grew up with brothers, I played softball growing up. I played volleyball. In fact, our team in intermediate, I always get them confused because we didn't have all this middle school and all that kind of stuff. We were growing up. So I always get, in 7th and 8th grade, our team got 2nd place in volleyball because my dad was the coach and he expected all of us to do the right thing. But anyway, the point is that no matter how hard I practiced, my brothers just had an edge. They had this edge, and I think that, like you said, for a woman that works really, really hard in all of these sports, and the thing is, you can watch this. All you have to do is do a search on YouTube, and you can see these biological men who are now identifying as women. They are competing in these sports, and they are like, I don't even know how to describe it, but the women are they're getting beaten.
So I saw a video of Leah Thomas from Pennsylvania, UPenn swim team. He's the guy that won the national title for girls swimming. I saw a video last week of the race where he beat the next closest competitor in a swimming meet by 38 seconds. That is an eternity in a swimming meet. And then on the, what do you call those? They have the blocks with the bronze, silver, and gold medal or winners things. And of course, he was on the top one because he won the gold medal.
And he looked like he was 9 foot tall.
It wasn't that, but I was just struck by how proud he was that he beat him. And I felt really bad that he didn't actually feel a little bit ashamed.
Well, I was thinking of the 4th place female.
Exactly, because she would have been in third place.
She should have been up there. And
exactly.
And you know that this girl, whoever the 4th place person was, probably worked from when she was small kid time.
Sure.
And
of course, people can say, "Oh, Jim, you're such a bigot. Why can't you let this person that thinks they're a girl be a girl?" I couldn't care less, as long as it's not unfair. And when it's unfair, I do care because I've always been an underdog supporting kind of guy.
Well,
Just me.
And let me just tell you, the strange bedfellows have arisen because of this issue. There have been the Women's Liberation Front. I think they go by Wolf. They are a very strong liberal, don't agree with us on any issue at all, but they have joined with the Family Policy Alliance on issues like this because they believe that women are starting to lose ground
women's sports
that they worked very hard to gain.
Women's sports where biological men are setting records, more likely than not, a woman is never going to be able to break that record, ever. And that's not fair.
No, it's not. And again, with strange bedfellows, another thing that's interesting is you'll find a lot of groups of lesbian women now who are also coming out in opposition to this. It's like a trans explosion, right? I mean, it's just all of a sudden the numbers of kids that are identifying as trans, and even people in the trans community who are.
Did you see Bill Maher on TV this past week?
Yes.
We should have had that clip. Darn it.
Oh, well, we should. But so I'm already worried because we're talking about this, even though we only have a few viewers, we may get dinged for this, But, what we're trying to say is that the U.S. Department of Education has been talking about tweaking Title IX, and that's really what this is. So they were supposed to make a decision in April. They were supposed to make it in May. And so now they're pushing back, saying they're going to make their final decision or release in June. So that's what we're expecting. Whatever they're going to do, it's supposed to come out in June. So that's kind of.
But if people want to know what the physiologists say about this issue, they should keep their eye on the news for an ADF case that's on the East Coast right now, because it's actually having testimony by experts on both sides. And that should make the news. It might not if the judge goes with the Alliance Defending Freedom expert opinions, but it should. And basically, I had a little preview last week. I was in an ADF seminar, but I won't share it. You got to watch the news. But like for fairness issues, I couldn't care less if transgendered guys that are girls want to be on the girls' checker team or the chess team or the debate team or the ballroom dancing team or anything that isn't unfair. And I don't mind if girls that are girls want to be kickers on the football team. It's not unfair if they wanted to risk the injury that they could have because they're the one risking and they're the one getting hurt. When boys are playing volleyball against girls, they can jump higher, they are stronger, and they can smash the ball down way more than girls are used to.
Did I not say earlier that I had 3 brothers? And let me tell you, playing volleyball with them, I've gotten beamed in the face by them.
Okay, and you probably had a concussion because girls are more concussion prone than boys.
I did have,
because boys are thick.
No, but I did have the Marsha Brady. Oh, my nose. For those of you that are familiar with that. So what's interesting, though, is because of this discussion and because people are anticipating that this new tweaking that they're going to do is not going to be a good thing.
You're talking about the NCAA or the...
I'm talking about the Title IX, the tweaking that the
Department of Education.
Right. So the tweaking they're going to do, people are anticipating this is not going to bode well for women because of what they're trying to do, right, is to really allow the gender identity stuff to really prevail. And again, when you're talking about someone who is born male and doesn't, even if they are really transgender, they really are, and they meet all the DSM criteria and all of that, most of them don't transition or take all the medication until a certain point. But now that's changing, and I think that's what's becoming scary for people, right, is that a lot of this is happening
So
younger.
We need to have perspective on this Title IX thing. We have to jump backwards over the Trump presidency to Obama. When Obama was the president, he had his Department of Education do similar Title IX rule changes on the transgender thing, and right at the tail end. And I remember that a lot of people were getting exercised about it because it was troublesome way back then. And when Trump came in, his Department of Education put everything back.
Betsy DeVos.
And now that Trump's out and Biden's in, they're going back to Obama. And so you can actually find a lot of discussion about this in 2015.
Well, isn't it amazing, though, that we're watching all these congressional hearings now? How many people that are going through these hearings will not identify, or they won't define what is a woman or what is a man? And recently on a hearing, one of the testifiers on the issue of abortion was asked, can a man have a baby? And she said yes.
Well, somebody I saw in the news last week was asked, what is a woman? And the person said, well, anybody can be a woman, which is really odd because that's not even a word that has any meaning then.
Well, do you remember that great song? I think it was in the 80s, maybe early 90s, Shania Twain, Man, I Feel Like a Woman.
No.
Okay, well, it was a really great country. She was a crossover. She was a country star, but she kind of crossed over. She was beautiful. So she did this song, Man, I Feel Like a Woman. And it was a beautiful song. And it was great, celebrating womanhood. Okay, when I hear that song now, I start to have like post-traumatic stress disorder because that, I mean, you can see what happens with a lot of these memes. I mean, man, I feel like a woman. You know, it's like anybody can say that now. And it's true. I've been in conversations with people that are now telling me that they're in the women's restroom and someone who walks in is obviously someone who is still a biological male, regardless of how they identify. Now, let's be honest about this. Most of us do not care what's under the hood. You know, I don't want to know. And if I don't know, that's fine, right? But when you're stuck in this position where you're feeling unsafe, and that's really what I'm talking about, right? There are
safety feelings and there are privacy issues.
Yes,
both.
And I give credibility to both of those.
Correct.
Because for a woman,
and it's more than the bathroom. It's the locker room.
The locker room.
The changing showering place.
You know, a lot of people will remember that weird. And I'm not.
And it's in prison too.
I'm not painting, you know, everybody with the same brush, but you know, there was a case in Canada where a biological male transitioning to woman, he actually got a massage parlor shut down because he was asking for something they were not going to do because he was a biological male and still had biological male parts, and he was actually able to shut them down. It was very scary.
I cannot guess what the issue was. I really can't guess.
Okay, well, I won't go there with you because we probably have.
Well, I don't like massages anyway. Well, too ticklish.
Yes,
but anyhow.
But the point is that there are doctors who are gynecologists who are now being forced to see
people
men
without gyno things.
Well, yes, because if
that's so stupid.
Well, if you think about it, if they're identifying as female and if they are transitioning,
that's why it's in the DSM.
No, we are getting crazy now. Again, let's remember one. Let's go back to the one thing you and I always talk about. We talk about issues, yes, we do, and we talk about the issues in generalities, why it's good, why it's bad. We try to point to people, right, to information that might help them. But you and I are keenly aware that there are individuals behind every issue. And there are people with stories.
Correct.
And we know that there are hurting people, there are confused people, there are angry people. This affects a lot of people. There may be people who have people in their family who are going through this issue. We don't want to dismiss any of that. But when you think what Patsy Mink and her colleagues tried to do at the time, I am positive that even though Patsy Mink doesn't agree with us on probably half of our issues, that in 2002 when she passed, they changed Title IX to be named after her.
Correct.
Because of what she fought for. And I would wager that this is not what she had envisioned when she fought for protection of women. Well,
in the 70s, nobody was considering transgenderism to be an issue
but
about
I think,
sex.
I realize that I do not know her personally, so I can't speak for her. Maybe somebody knows her personally. She probably would be very supportive of LGBT issues today.
I actually don't know.
Because she was pretty liberal. But if you're going to, the reason she fought for fairness in one of the issues in for fairness of women was because she wanted a level playing field, and there is no level playing field.
Correct.
If you're you know what I'm talking about.
Your body.
You know, those people listening, they know what I'm talking about. Anyway, it wasn't what she intended. And I think that we have to, this is going to get ugly, I think.
Well, let's talk about, because we got like 3 minutes left, these new rules are going to come out, and people are commenting on the rules because that's the process that's required under our law. And 88 groups call on the Department of Ed to cancel plans for the new Title IX regulations. Texas and a whole bunch of other attorneys general are asking about it. There's probably going to be lawsuits.
I think that's why they push back decision making on it, because of all of this.
Maybe everybody watching this show needs to go to the Department of Education rulemaking online and submit comments.
They may have closed the comments.
Okay. You can still send in stuff, even if the comment section is closed.
Here's what I think. I had this question. We a lot of times will encourage people to contact their legislator, right? But I just had this conversation with someone recently that our relationship and our voice actually means to any administrative office that's out there.
Absolutely.
And so we're not telling you just to call your senator or representative. In this case, make contact with the Department of Education.
Yeah, and also the other interesting thing is, just in the end of May, the legislature in Indiana passed a Save Girls Sports bill. The governor overrode it. But now the legislature, or vetoed it, the legislature overrode the governor's veto. So when the federal government in Title IX is trying to make a rule for every state, every school in the country on a national basis, states are going through their process to change it for themselves.
And a group of legislators in the U.S. House of Representatives, they have a resolution that they also put out in May, and it's establishing a women's bill of right to reaffirm legal protections afforded to women under federal law. And it's just a resolution, and we've talked about that before. It doesn't have force of law, but I love it that it's only a 3-page resolution, very easy to read. We'll make that link available, and I love
3 pages. Must be a Republican.
But it is saying in there, resolved. Oh, this is Senate. I'm sorry. I had said it was House. It was the Senate. Resolved that the Senate reaffirms that for the purpose of federal law, that sex of an individual means his or her biological sex, either male or female at birth. For the purpose of federal law, the terms woman and girl refer to human females, and the terms man and boy refers to human. First of all, can I just say that I am shocked that I actually have to say that somebody had to define what woman and men means?
Well, it's been on TV. Nope, can't answer that. I'm not a biologist, but I am a Supreme Court justice.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so that leads us to where we are today, which means you have to stay plugged into us because things are going to keep popping. We want to keep you informed. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, hit that notification button, comment. Give a shout out to K-Light, KESU Radio, all our listeners on Spotify and iTunes.
Become a supporter. A sponsor.
And send an email to jim@jameshochberg.law and say hello.
That's not my email address, but thanks.
What? It isn't? I don't know what I'm doing. It's a crazy day today. We will see you all next week. Mahalo, everybody.
Aloha.